So good morning, everybody. It's an honor, it's a joy, and it's a pity that so many people are outside of the room, because this is the highlight of the most important conversation on legal issues that happens in the world. We are having so many champions of the rule of law around, and but this is probably the one to attract it more attention. I'm here just to facilitate. I'm going to get out because this is the real thing. The real thing is we need new generations to get engaged with the rule of law. Of course, we need good courts. Of course, we need good constitutions, separation of powers, elections, judiciary control, but we need the people. So let me say thank you to Hilary Bass, Patricia Lirifo, presidents of the American Bar Association. Let me say thank you to Mr. Traynor, Dean of the George Washington University, to Lorenzetti, Mr. Lorenzetti, Chief Justice from the Argentinian Supreme Court, Holta, President of the Constitutional Court of Albania, Jose Luis Manzano, who has made it happen, President Teodoro Sanchez Avila, so many of you from different justices. But let me, Director of this university, and of course the Familia Aybar, Justice of the Spanish Supreme Court, nice to be here. It's very good, Laura, to see you here again. So let's just start the conversation. I ask you, what would you like, what panel, what topic? And she said, I would love to engage and have a dialogue with new generations. And we got it here. 5 continents and 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, okay? You've got them here. So I want to you gave her an applause to Sonia Sotomayor. But I am asking you, please, stand and give an applause to the youngsters, please. There, stand. Thank you. So let's start the conversation. I'm going to pass you the microphone. I'm just going to facilitate. I'm going out of the stage. And now it's your turn. The rules. Justice Sotomayor.
Buenos días. Me tienen que perdonar mi español. Fui formalmente educada en inglés, no en español. Pero me defiendo en español. Voy a hacer una mezcla de inglés y español, okay? I've just explained that I'm going to speak in a mixture of Spanish and English. I'll start in English. Why am I here with you? Have you looked at the state of the world? It's miserable. We have 2 world wars. We have poverty, hunger. We have hunger. We have environmental problems that are overwhelming us. The world is a mess. We adults have made it that way. So what's left? You, the next generation. If you don't fix what we have done, no one will. And so I think that when I speak to young audiences, my message is to you, our future is literally in your hands. You fix it because we can't. And I have faith in your energy, in your not being jaded by life experiences, in not having a closed mind, but an open one to think about new ways of solving problems. So thank you for joining me here today. and let's hope we teach them something, okay? All right. Now.
Thank you so much. So, if you're okay, I will be okay. I will be starting by India. I mean, you don't represent India. You represent children. You are 10 years old. Your father is a champion of, he's the most well-known lawyer in the world to protect children. He does a fantastic work. Stand up, please, stand up. So, Inkalavat Ribu, you have prepared, I have to say, thank you for accepting this challenge, this opportunity, this gift. And now you have a question for Mr. Justice, so for Justice Sotomayor. Please, do it.
Tell the audience your full name first.
Hola, buenos días. My name is Inkalab Satyarthi.
Wow.
To me, the rule of law means the only thing that separates justice and evil. As a judge and as a really good one, what does the rule of law mean to you, and why is it important for people?
We are a community. We are a group of people who are trying to live together. We have religion, and religion is morality. It tells you good and bad, and it explains how, and every religion has rules about how you behave towards others. But they're fairly basic, okay? Moses' Bible has just 10 commandments. I can tell you that there's no society that has just 10 rules, all right? We have thousands of them, generally. Why do we need them? We need them to share resources. We need them to figure out how to live together in an organized way. And so that is what lawyers are about. That's what law is about. Helping our relationship with one another. And it's pretty basic, okay? When you stop at a light and it's green and you go, when you stop and it's red and you stop, and then you go when it's green, why are you doing that? In most places, it's because a law tells you, go on green, stop on red. Why? Because if we let each of you individually run to where you have to go and get there the fastest, a large number of people are going to get into accidents and be hurt. So what do we as a society decide? We as a society decide everybody will give up a little bit of their time so most people are safer. And that's what laws are doing. They're making you give up some things so that there's a better group of us who can live together. That's why the rule of law is so critical. Because without it, we no longer have a way to interact with each other in which we can have expectations of how other people will behave. We expect people to stop at red lights. And if they don't, it's not just a disappointment, it's an injury to the community. And so those are why, for me, rule of law is so critical. It's the way we survive as a society. Without it, people will be hurt in ways that they will feel and are unfair. That's why when you have systems of tyranny or dictatorship, people feel it's unfair because they're being told to do things but they don't understand why. And the benefits go to one person rather than to the society as a whole. So if you can't expect the rules to protect you, you will no longer be able to function as a community that supports one another. That's what the rule of law means to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go to another continent. Let's go to the New World. I heard that many times yesterday, night at the night. They are happy, they are proud. Americans are proud that they're still the new land. Let's go to Venezuela, where many people are suffering. The rule of law is missing, but new generations, many of them has to flee and to be migrants. And I would like Alexander Pavón Farias from Venezuela to take the mic.
Justice Sotomayor, it's a pleasure. First of all, I would like to thank you for being here with us today. And my question is, what role does the public play in the rule of law globally? Thanks.
It's there because of you, because of the public. If it doesn't function, it's because you let it not function. And that's always my message, which is rules, laws are made by people. They don't come from God. God has his moral laws, but the laws that we agree to among ourselves are laws that are made by people, which means when they're broken by whom? People. All right? And if you accept that rules can be broken as a society, then it's the people that are permitting it. Life is not being a bystander where you let a bus run you down. You stand on a corner, you see the bus coming towards you, and you say, okay, don't hit me, and it hits you, okay? If you watch rules being broken against other people, one of those days, the rule's gonna break you. And so that's why people are at the essence of protecting the rule of law. I know lawyers like to think they are. And in some ways, if they're good lawyers, what they're doing is working at teaching you what your rights are and how to voice your concerns and act on them. But it's the reason that people exist to ensure that the rule of law is protected. It happens in many countries through your vote, in making sure that you're electing leaders who respect the rule of law, and it's in others where there are not elections of that type. You work at it in the representatives you elect, but you have to actively be a participant in the process, because without it, the process won't exist.
Thank you. Thank you. So, India, Venezuela. Let's go to Spain. Javi. So, Javi, you are 15 years old. You were invited also to participate. I invited you at home. At dinner, I say, would you like to do it? He said, he was probably like everybody, a bit overwhelmed, but said, let's do it. Yes, and Sotomayor is Sotomayor. There is a village in Spain which is Sotomayor. There is a castle which is Sotomayor. And people like Justice Sotomayor has, as we all do, a complex identity, meaning that we have a lot of roots, a lot of inputs, but Spain and America are very connected. The rule of law are right here, through this island, the School of Salamanca, the human dignity concept, and particularly the world order based in rules. So you are a family. We are all a family. But particularly, we're not cousins, we're brothers. So, Javi, This is your turn to speak and to do whatever you like.
Sé que él no te dio tanta elección en esto, estoy segura. Pero es bueno que está diciendo eso, ¿ok?
Bueno, es un placer estar aquí hoy con usted. Y nada, usted ha hablado mucho sobre la importancia de la educación y la empatía. ¿Qué consejo le daría a los jóvenes adolescentes como yo para poder entender mejor el sistema judicial y por qué deberíamos confiar en él incluso cuando vemos tantas injusticias?
La educación es la cosa más importante en el mundo, porque con la educación abre uno la cabeza. Hay muchas ideas que uno no se van a encontrar solamente uno solo. Tiene que leer lo que las otras gente están haciendo, lo que están pensando. Tienen que examinar las historias, no solamente del país de uno, pero de los países del mundo. Porque sin uno saber lo que han hecho otros, no vas a saber lo que tiene que hacer usted para cambiar las cosas. Ahora, el derecho es parte de cada sociedad. So, en muchas maneras uno está aprendiendo las reglas del derecho. Pero lo que tiene que estar mirando cuando lo está haciendo es entender el motivo de la gente en cómo se ponen ellos juntos como una comunidad. I'm going to switch to English. I know you understand. We all have different types of government, okay? America has a representative government with a Senate and a House of Representatives and a president and 3 branches of government. Other countries are parliamentary. Others are different shapes and types. And every society has done that for different reasons. Some historical, some because it's the way that they started and they've just continued that way. There are countries like South Africa who, when they ended apartheid, created a totally new constitutional structure, all right? America's Constitution, I call it the negative. Government don't do this. It's not a positive constitution. It doesn't give positive rights. South African Constitution gives positive rights. It tells the government that people are owed an education, that they're owed medical benefits, that they're owed some responsibility by the government to take care of them. By you, young people, studying these different systems, you have an opportunity to figure out what's better and what's not. Now, to suggest that positive rights is better all the time, there's limited resources. And those limited resources are going to make tensions between what the government can prioritize or not. And that's a struggle in South Africa, with many groups fighting over those limited resources. America is different because we don't have them, and our fights are slightly different, but they still exist because we are fighting about what the government can and cannot do towards individuals, because it's a no society, okay? No, the government can't do this. These are different ways of organization, but you as young people really have an obligation to think about, and you can't think about it until you expose yourself to it, to study how the society is organized, how different ones function, and for yourself to judge what might be better or not in your own cultural situation. But that's the importance of your education. And what I think is most critical for you, both as human beings and as members of any society you're in. Learn, expose yourself, think new ideas. That's what's most important about you being young. You know, the brain is a muscle. You ever think of that? And what do you do to make muscles bigger? You work out. And the more information you put into your brain, the harder you're making your brain work. In the end, the smarter you're going to be, and the more insights you will be able to develop.
Thank you so much. Let's go now. Let's continue this beautiful conversation. Now we're going to go to the U.S., but in a very particular way. Javier González is an attorney at law. How old are you, Javier? 30? Yeah, young enough. Yeah, you're still allowed to be here. And but Javier is a son of Mexican migrants to the U.S. He made it. He went to a law school, and he's now practicing in Houston, I think, in one of the best law firms. But when I talked to you about the possibility of talking to Justice Sotomayor, you were enthusiastically saying yes. So it's now an opportunity for you. Now you share these Hispanic roots. Yesterday, Justice Sotomayor repeated a few times, I am Puerto Rican, so I like good music. I am Puerto Rican, so I like good food. So Puerto Rican means, of course, American. But you're also American, but I think you're also a bit of Mexican. So the mic is yours.
Well, Justice Sotomayor, thank you for coming. And as a younger attorney, I thank you for your proactive approach to the youth, especially with the rule of law. My question to you is, what societal or cultural conditions do you consider necessary to support the flourishing of the rule of law?
That's a fascinating question. You need some basic, more than subsistence level existence. So you really as a society have to ensure that everyone in your society has some equal resources. And by that I mean, you have to make sure that people are not always hungry, because the rule of law is going to break down with hunger. At some point, you can starve someone, but not very long before they steal, all right? The same thing with a minimum amount of medical care. If people are dying, they are going to react in a way that breaks down the rule of law. If they're always ill, if they're not well, you also need a minimum amount of education. When you look at many communist countries, start with the Cuban Revolution. What was the promise of that revolution? The promise of that revolution was to educate, to give everyone a minimal education in Cuba. From what I understand, and I've not studied it since I was in university, it has pretty much accomplished that. Just about everybody can read and write. But you need an educated population for a group to think about these concepts of organization. So at its essence, the society needs, I think, those three basic components, okay? Then what you need is leaders who have a commitment to the betterment of their individual society, all right? I don't know, I don't often promote things, but there is a movie out there called The United Kingdom, and it's a movie about the first king after the freedom of Botswana from British rule, okay? Botswana is one of the few countries in Africa that has hardly any corruption. Why is that? Because that first king united the disparate tribes of Botswana, and it was that unity that got them to win their independence, by telling them that they could rule always if the first order objective of the collective was the betterment of Botswana as a whole. And he insisted when he set up his government on Botswana that every public official had to work for the betterment of the country as a whole. And so it was never about one tribe or another tribe, but maintaining the collective health of all tribes. And the judgment that they used in doing that was, if we pass a law, how is it going to help Botswana? Now, Botswana has its problems, like every other country, but the one thing it doesn't suffer is corruption, okay? That's not to say there isn't an isolated person, but those people are weeded out, pardon the pun, and they're prosecuted. So you need leaders who actually believe that their work is not for themselves, for their tenure or for their good, financial or otherwise, but for the people and what is good for them and will improve their lot. So I think that's the foundation for the best functioning societies.
Thank you.
So now we go to Cristal. Cristal Aybar. She was born here. She's Dominican Republic, and she has been working a lot in the last days. She's a volunteer to put everything this together. You know that this building is celebrating today the opening, and her family has made all the effort of bringing these 6 floors to host today's conversation. So I want to thank you very much, Cristal, because you were personally very much engaged, and you deserve to be part of this conversation, and we need also your input as Dominican.
Good morning, Justice Sotomayor. I wanted to thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
So tell me who your family is. Are your parents here?
Yes, my dad is all the way back there
Okay.
with the red tie.
Okay.
My mom is over here in the front.
All right. Lo conocí anoche.
And I have some friends over there in a corner.
You guys have parents here? Who are your parents? Okay. ¿Y qué hace su mamá? She's a lawyer. Okay. It's not so bad, huh? And for you?
My dad's over there.
Okay. And who is your dad?
He's an entrepreneur.
Okay. And I know who your dad is. And we saw yours. Okay, go ahead.
My question is, what advice would you give to women and minorities today in comparison to 30 or 40 years ago?
You know, this was an ad for a very bad thing, a cigarette. And the ad started, we've come a long way. And we have come a dramatically long way. When I started on my court, there were just two Supreme Court justices who were women, Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Sandra Day O'Connor was confirmed in 1981, but it took till, I think it was 1993 or 4 for Ruth Bader Ginsburg to come in. So that was a good, close to 15 years. Between Justice Ginsburg and me, she was, if 93, 94, I was 2009, almost as long. But today, both of them are no longer with the court, but we are 4 women out of 9. That's huge progress, okay? But I'm going to quote my sister, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. When President Obama asked her, was she happy that she had brought 2 sisters, myself and Justice Kagan, to the court, she said, I'm very happy, but I'll be happier when all 9 are women. It doesn't have to be that way to reach more equality. But I think our story is not identical in most countries, but in most countries, there's now many, many more women. Our economic situation has generally improved, but typical of the United States is typical, I think, of the world. even though we may be doing in many areas the same work, we're still not getting paid the same. And so wage inequality is still a problem in the world. Also, you know, I had this experience in my career, which was I watched, my very first job, there were a number of fiscales in my office. And the new ones were promoted every 3 to 6 months, okay, a group. And the very first group was all men and me. And I was looking around because the office was not quite 50-50, but there were a lot of women. And I couldn't understand why they picked 5 men and just 1 woman to promote the first time. And I realized, as I looked at who they picked, that everybody picked somebody who looked like them. And I don't mean physically, but they picked people who personality and style was very much like the head of the bureaus that were promoting them. So the bureau that had a very aggressive, in-your-face prosecutor picked someone of my class who was very aggressive and in your face. The next bureau was a bureau chief who wasn't quite as aggressive, but still liked a manly presentation, you know? And that's who he picked. And that was the same for all of the bureaus. And then the man who picked me was a man who was exceedingly, I'm just going to say very nice things about him because I think he was wonderful. He picked me because he was the most thoughtful of all the leaders that were picking. And he understood that I was very thoughtful about everything I did. But that's why he picked me. So long as men are being asked to select people, men alone, are being asked to select people for positions, we are going to be at a disadvantage. We need to have selection mechanisms that are more balanced so that people can have a more fairer opportunity to be picked. But what I say to you right now is the world is more open to you, but don't assume that discrimination doesn't exist. It still does. The day that I was in a room filled with 20 male lawyers, and we were working on a case against each other, on a case, and one of the men looked at me and said, "Can you get us coffee?" That's going to happen to you. You're going to be in a room, and they're going to look at you and say, "Why don't you get that?" It is just sort of an inbred reaction. In that situation, the man who I was there with, the managing partner of my firm, I didn't have to say a word. He looked up and he said, "She's a lawyer, she doesn't get coffee." And he got up and called and asked for coffee to be delivered. It takes men and women working together to reach equality. It takes men of goodwill to know what their responsibilities are to others. And so it's not a job we do by ourselves. It's a job we do as a society as a whole, accepting that every judge and lawyer, male or female in this room, is devoted to the equality of people of all kinds. Because without it, we don't survive. Once you marginalize any part of your population, once you oppress any part of your society, that's a festering wound that will destroy your society. Because people who are treated without respect or dignity, they are going to rebel. And that's what we hope the rule of law avoids, is the oppression of any group of people, because that in the end will destroy whatever good your society is trying to do.
Thank you. Anybody who is treated without respect and dignity will rebel. If you want people in the system, participating, enjoying life, let's respect their dignity. Max Reynolds, it's your turn. I would like to thank you, but also thank your father, Tim Reynolds, who is one of the most generous philanthropists in the world, and who is somebody very worried about how do we keep rule of law alive for the next generations. And he's somebody trying to do something. But now what you are doing is to facilitate the conversations through your son. Max.
You didn't have much choice either, I know.
Thank you for being here and for taking an interest in the new generations, and particularly within the context of, you were saying earlier, with the people being responsible for creating, upholding, and following the rule of law. I think that the new generation is particularly important. And so, given there's an inherent tension between the qualities that define youth, creativity, passion, vision, and the nature of the law, characterized by rigidity, inertia, and a highly technical language. And so how would you inspire new generations to interact with the rule of law and engage in that tension?
Max, that's such a thoughtful question, and you're absolutely right. I think you have to understand at its essence what the rule of law gives people before you start advocating for change. Because you're right, the change has to occur. And in every society, the law cannot remain static. Because if it does, the society shrivels up, okay? So what does it take to have a vibrant rule of law? It takes understanding the essence of what people are seeking. What people seek is stability. Everybody, how many people here think that there are right or wrong answers that the law provides? Bill Traynor says that. And by the way, he is the outgoing dean of Georgetown Law School. Yeah. Okay. But he's also a dear friend. No one raised their hand, but the reality is that if you ask most citizens, what they will say to you is, law provides the right and wrong answers. And I look at them and say, no, right and wrong is up to God, okay? God tells us what's moral. He judges how we treat each other and whether it's in a nice or bad way. There is no law that says a human being can't be rude or overbearing as a boss, or you can describe all the nasty ways that people behave. There are very few laws that control that. What controls that is morality. What law controls is expectations of behavior. And so people want the security in law of knowing how others will act, that they're going to stop at that red light, okay? So as you're changing law with youth and with new vision, you have to identify what's at the core of your societal needs for stability. In what areas is that stability most necessary? And in which areas can you tinker with it and still keep the essence of what you have? In my legal system, for example, one of the things that the courts say to ourselves, okay, in contract law, let's not make many changes. Because businessmen like the security of knowing what every provision means in their contract, because they feel free to change it if they don't like it, all right? Knowing that the court will respect that decision. And so in the American legal system, you bring a case to the court that says, if you read this provision in the contract, it's wrong. It started from the wrong assumption. The assumptions have now changed, the society's different, blah, blah, blah. You can see the arguments, okay? Most of the time, a judge will say, even if it's wrong, we will be upsetting business expectations upon which millions of dollars, or if not billions, have been traded and exchanged. So it's not a good idea to change that, all right? Now you have an area of the law, the internet, now artificial intelligence, okay? In most countries, well, I shouldn't say in most, in America, America's been doing very little to control that, under the understanding that it's a developing area of law and we don't want to stifle its growth. European countries have been more, I don't want to use it in a negative sense, intrusive makes it sound negative, but I don't intend that, but have been much more involved in regulating the internet because they understand its potential to disrupt their society. And there is where judgment comes in of when to intercede in law, when not to, what to do with this energy that young people have to bring to a new area, new developing area. But it also can be extraordinarily intrusive and dangerous. We've all heard about the suicides of young people who have come about because of bullying on social media. This is the kind of behavior that we as nations are looking at. But in short answer to your question, it's not that being young and having your vision and your creativity and new things are bad. It's making a judgment of where what your ideas are upsetting. What's the expectations? And are they expectations that you want to upset because you want a new order? Or are you doing it in a way that will undermine the foundation of your society? That's always a judgment call. It's a judgment call that courts are dealing with every time they overturn precedent. Every single time a court overturns precedent, you're upsetting people's expectations. And you're going to create unhappiness. We're giving you, the United States is giving you a lot of examples of this lately. No, I'm not serious. We're a laboratory right now for what happens to your society when you overturn precedent. And it's something that has to be done, pardon the pun, judiciously and with a lot of forethought.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go from the US back to Europe. And let's hear the last voice for today's speech. Martina Solana. How old are you, Martina? 13.
Eres la más joven. ¿No? 10? Ave María, okay.
So, Martina's dad, do you mind to step up, please? Diego Solana. Thank you, Diego, very much for what you have done.
Lo conocía en este caso. Sí.
Martina.
Bueno, lo primero de todo, quería darle las gracias por darnos hoy voz a todos los jóvenes que estamos aquí. Y bueno, mi pregunta es que ¿por qué cree usted que deberíamos nosotros, los jóvenes estudiantes, elegir el camino de estudiar sobre la justicia, los jueces y nuestros derechos en lugar de otras carreras o caminos?
Como expliqué, las leyes impactan todo de lo que usted hace. Como jóvenes, y como seres humanos en la comunidad de cada uno. Del momento de la ley diciéndote te puedes ir en la verde y parar en la colorada, pero las leyes de muchos países insisten que los padres tienen que educar a sus hijos. Dice la ley la relación de los padres, a uno al otro y a los nenes que tienen. La ley es parte de todo lo que hace uno. No hay como escapar el efecto de la ley en la vida de uno. Que sea uno empleado o el jefe, que sea usted el gobierno bregando con sus ciudadanos, la ley dice cada cosita que uno puede hacer o no hacer. Si uno no entiende esa realidad, no entiende, no me importa tu interés. Puede ser que usted quiere ser un artista, que quiere ser an engineer, a scientist, whatever you want to do in life, the law affects you. The law controls every aspect of every relationship that you have. And as a result, if you don't appreciate that law is the singularly most common thing in all of our lives, you won't appreciate the importance of why you have to study it. You don't have to be a lawyer, but you do have to be aware of how the law affects you and what impact it has in your life. Because without that understanding, you can't change the things you don't like. And so for me, that's why I spend so much time in civic education, in ensuring that young people are being taught about law and its importance, and why everyone should have a basic understanding of that which controls you. You have no chance of controlling it back if you don't study it and understand it. And so I encourage every young person, no matter what you imagine your future to be, what your interests are. I start with being an artist. Some of the most powerful, encouraging things of almost every revolution has been music and art. Paul Revere in the United States rode his horse to say the British are coming throughout Boston. A picture of Paul Revere riding into the night screaming the British are coming was a rallying symbol during America's Revolutionary War. You can think of almost every war. What was that lady with the muscle during World War II? Rosie the River. Yes, exactly. That too galvanized women to help during the war effort in the United States. I am sure that each of you can point to an artistic symbol, a song, our national anthems. All of these things are art that are a part of our collective as a society. But I can't leave here today without each one of you understanding and appreciating that it's only through your learning of law and how it's made and what its purpose is that you have a chance of making sure that the law doesn't control you, but you control it.
So we have almost come to the end. The end is going to be a final address of Justice Sotomayor. After that, you will see whether the 8 of them have done a good job or not. And if you think they have done a good job, you can recognize it. But I think today we saw here how love, energy, wisdom, and experience can interact and create something very valuable is not just Justice Sotomayor wisdom and experience. It's also their own talent, their love, their energy. Rule of law is under threat. And there are many people thinking where this experiment will be sustainable. I think today we have even more hope than we had yesterday, because we saw this civic engagement. And you talk about civic education. I hope everything was recorded, and I hope the policies of the Supreme Court, I don't know them in detail, will allow us to spread the word and to make a lot of peels, because this is so important to keep safe freedom and human dignity and peace. So thank you so much. Let me record. I'm passing again the word to have the final words to Justice Sotomayor. But please, once we finish, we all go out and you guys stay here, because you're going to have your picture, a family picture, and an individual picture with Justice Sotomayor. I know it will be something very valuable for today, for your present, and for the future. So thank you very much to this team, this wonderful team. This is a dream team that give hope to the whole world. Thank you so much.
At your ages, I didn't have the self-possession to do what you've done today. It's very hard to look at a crowd this big and ask a question. You are much more mature than I was your age. I'm very, very grateful that you're taking an interest. I'm also grateful to the many parents who have brought their children today and to many of the sessions of the World Jurist Association meeting. I am eternally optimistic by nature. I understand the threat to the rule of law that exists everywhere right now. And it is worrisome to me, but I fundamentally believe that there are enough people of goodwill in the world that we will together work on protecting the rule of law. And I see it in the faces that are here. I see it in the energy you're bringing to this enterprise. And all I can say to you, because as you can imagine, there are very sad moments for me in my court's current jurisprudence. But having said that, I still have hope, because I know that there are many people who aspire to ensure that our rule of law survives. I thank you all for being a part of that project, for being here and for participating, not only here, but in your own countries, in protecting that which is so valuable to our survival as a world. We have avoided thus far a nuclear warfare. I pray that we continue to do it, but at risk is a wrong judgment, and that puts our survival as a world at risk. So thank you all for everything you're doing.